All right, Harry, you hear people say being a Christian is hard, right? What's your opinion on that? Do you think so?
Yeah, I think so. Being a Christian is hard, but there comes a place, a pleasant place, and I really have to admit that that's where I am. That doesn't make it easy, but there is a pleasant place you get to also, I think, I believe, I hope it's right. I know that if you're too comfortable, you're not getting it right. So, I think there's a place where you're kind of settled and it's all good. But, but I got some questions for you, Justin. Let's go back a bit in time. 4 years ago, what was life like for you? Was it hard or easy?
Well, I wasn't a Christian at this point 4 years ago, and life was getting pretty close to the lowest point of my life. I was calling it quits pretty much at that point, and things were hitting the gutter for sure. So it definitely wasn't easy. Things were not going well for me. We can go through all extremes and think about and ponder about that, but I was at the lowest. It was definitely not easier than it is today, for example.
And then 3.5 years ago, what were you doing then, and what was that like?
Well, 3.5 years ago, I was my first day in rehab, and that was about as low as you can get. It was worse than even before because I was trying to get back on the straight and narrow, and man, was that tough. Like humbling and going to a place that's a rehab, and you're just sitting there on a top bunk, falling asleep, and you're like, what has my life come to? Like, many tears were shed those first couple of weeks there of facing the reality of the consequences of were to come.
I think part of it was though that you were serious about it because I was a volunteer there at that time. That's how we got to know each other. And yeah, and all through those months that you were there, not many people had more questions for me than you did, and we've been blessed with that connection for ever since.
And
So
it's still that way, isn't it? Still, not many more people have more questions than I do.
no, that was good. So then, what was the next stage?
The next stage was I went to jail because I did some stuff in the 4 year area that I was paying the consequence for, and that was tough too. But honestly, when I look back on it, it wasn't as tough because I've had it. I figured it out at that point, and it grew so much. Like there was really tough days in there, but I just saw God's hand working in this place where I was the only Christian at that point. So you could see things happening, and I really felt like I remember saying to people in jail, I was like, though they took my freedom away, I have never felt so free in my life. And that was the turning point to where things started becoming a lot easier as a Christian. Though, like you say, we still have problems on a daily basis because we're trying to fight the good fight. But this was the turning point where I could really start to see things becoming a lot better.
I remember the visits on the phone during that time, and it was yeah, it wasn't easy. But one thing about it, you really were serious about it, and actually, you weren't dilly dallying because you were sharing the faith with your cellmates, and at least you had a purpose, and had a you're fighting the fight, which is better than just kind of going into the what you call the
Doing
underground.
time phase.
Yeah, yeah, you had a purpose, and with that purpose, and also living the Christian life there, you actually got to work in the kitchen because they liked your behavior and all this kind of stuff. So,
Yeah, ended up getting the best jobs. Like God was just blessing me a ridiculous amount of undeserving there for sure.
and then so in the last couple years, has life been easy or hard?
There's been some challenges, for sure. I had ended up getting on parole, so I had to have an ankle bracelet on for 8 months. That was difficult to be under a routine and doing all the restrictions and things like this. But it didn't really phase me. Like I was just, we say this to each other, right, Harry? There's only three things that God can truly give you, and that's love, joy, and peace. And during any hardship that you face as a Christian, when you're truly a Christian, you just have that love and joy and peace. I'm not saying that I had easy days or easy weeks in some cases. Some of the times they were a battle, but nothing compared to what we just talked about of rehab and incarceration beforehand.
Yeah, and of course, as you try to make the change from the not right choices to getting that, like for example, like the prodigal son, when he was feeding the hogs, things weren't easy. But that road home would have been awful long and hard too.
Mm.
That's what am I going to face when I get there, and the embarrassment and all that.
But once you get there, and you just see that it's in the past, right? And we shouldn't glorify it or think about it or talk about it, because you rarely hear me even say to people, like, because like my passion is for Jesus. Like, I'd way rather focus on Jesus and what he's done than the
Right.
ridiculous things that I'd done in my past.
Like I really like the story about Legion when Jesus cast out the demons out of him, and he wanted to go with Jesus and be with him now that he had been redeemed, and Jesus, no, 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 he says, you go back and tell these folks what the Lord has done in your life, and so that's what he did. He went around and told people, but there's a real joy in that because there is a victory, and I think often of those churches in Revelation, it says on each one, every one of them, and for the individual who is victorious, you will enjoy this or that or something else. Each one a little different, but there was a gift of God for everyone that's victorious, and there really is. I mean, life isn't. Yeah, being a Christian isn't easy, but my goodness, not being a Christian is a whole lot harder than what I am. I've never been as happy as I am today. I lived a fairly, sheltered life, but since I've really, surrendered properly, yeah, all the other stuff's gone. Like you're up to date. You don't have to worry about. There's no worry, no nothing, because we're happy to be here and happy to be the next place.
Yeah, it's
It's
this is how I say it, is all you really need when you're stripped away from everything, and you really realize that if all you have is God, you're in a good place.
Yeah, yeah. So life, going back to the original question, is life hard? Yeah, life is always hard. But that is how life is. Like there's not life is hard being a Christian. Hard life is hard not being a Christian. But the beautiful part about being a Christian and being right with God is that there's a joy and a peace and that comes from that, and those that's at least that you have a good hard. It's hard, but it's good because you're on the right side of history, and it's a beautiful journey.
Amen. Thanks, Harry.